push!
Yes!
I was locked outside on my son's wedding day, unaware of the $55 million wedding gift I had planned. I stood there at the grand entrance of the Riverside Manor, my heart pounding with a father's pride. The morning sun cast golden rays across the perfectly manicured gardens, and white roses lined the cobblestone pathway leading to the venue. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. After 26 years of sacrifice, struggle, and single-handedly raising my son Benjamin, I was finally going to watch him get married. I had the check in my inside jacket pocket, $55 million. My hand brushed against it as I adjusted my tie, making sure everything was perfect. None of the guests streaming past me knew what I was carrying. Not my colleagues from the accounting firm, not my neighbors, not even Benjamin himself. This was going to be my surprise, my gift, my way of showing my son that every sleepless night, every missed meal, every sacrifice had been worth it. The parking lot was filling up fast. I had arrived early, wanting to savor every moment. I watched as my coworkers pulled up in their vehicles, waving at me with broad smiles. They knew my story. They knew how hard I had worked to get here. Some of them had tears in their eyes just seeing me standing there in my best suit, about to witness my only child start his own family. "Richard!" Gregory Mitchell, my supervisor, called out as he approached with his wife. "Big day, my friend. You must be bursting with pride." "You have no idea," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. 26 years, Gregory. 26 years of just the two of us, and now he's starting his own family. "You did an incredible job raising that boy. Not many men could have done what you did." I smiled, feeling the weight of the check against my chest. If only he knew what I was about to give Benjamin. If only any of them knew. More guests arrived. I greeted them all, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, feeling like the proudest man alive. The venue staff bustled about, making final preparations. White doves cooed in their cages, waiting to be released. A string quartet was setting up near the garden archway where the ceremony would take place. Everything was perfect, absolutely perfect. Then I saw him. Benjamin emerged from the hotel next door, which connected to the venue through a private walkway. He looked stunning in his tailored black tuxedo, his hair perfectly styled, his face glowing with what I assumed was wedding day excitement. My boy, my son, the child I had raised from a helpless 6-month-old baby into this handsome, successful young man. I raised my hand to wave at him, ready to call out to him, ready to pull him aside and maybe give him a father-son moment before the ceremony. But something was wrong. His face wasn't glowing with happiness. His expression was hard, cold, twisted with something I had never seen directed at me before. Rage. "Benjamin," I called out, starting to walk toward him. "Son, you look—" "Don't you dare call me that!" His voice cut through the pleasant morning chatter like a blade. Guests stopped their conversations, heads turned. The string quartet fell silent mid-tune. I froze, confusion flooding through me. "Benjamin, what's wrong? Are you okay? Is it wedding jitters? Because that's completely normal, son. Every groom feels—" "I said don't call me that!" He was walking toward me now, his steps quick and purposeful. His face was flushed red, his fists clenched at his sides. "You have some nerve showing up here. You actually thought you could come to my wedding after everything?" "After everything?" I repeated, my mind racing. What is he talking about? We had been planning this wedding together for months. I had helped choose the venue. I had contributed to the costs. We had gone cake tasting just 3 weeks ago. "Benjamin? I don't understand. What's happening?" People were gathering now, forming a circle around us. I could see my colleagues' confused faces, their concern. I could hear whispers spreading through the crowd. My chest tightened with humiliation and fear. "You don't understand," Benjamin laughed, but it was a harsh, bitter sound. "Of course you don't. You've been lying for so long, I bet you don't even remember the truth anymore." "Benjamin, please." I reached out toward him, my hand trembling. "Whatever you think I've done, let's talk about this inside. This is your wedding day. Don't let anything ruin. You're what's ruining it." he shouted. "Your presence here is ruining it. I don't want you here. I don't want to see your face. I don't want anywhere near me or my wife or my future." The words hit me like physical blows. I staggered backward, nearly falling, my arms windmilling to keep my balance. Gasps erupted from the crowd. I heard Gregory shout, "Hey, what are you doing?" But Benjamin wasn't finished. "Get out!" he screamed, pointing toward the parking lot. "Get out of here and never come back. You're not welcome at my wedding. You're not welcome in my life. I never want to see you again." "Benjamin, no, please," I begged now, tears streaming down my face. "Please, don't do this. Not today. Whatever I did, we can fix it. We can talk about it. Please, son, please." But he was already turning away, walking toward the ornate iron gates that separated the venue entrance from the parking area. 2 security guards materialized from nowhere, clearly having been instructed beforehand. They took positions on either side of Benjamin as he reached the gates. That's when I saw her. Standing just behind Benjamin, partially hidden by his shoulder, was Isabella Morgan, his mother, the woman who had abandoned him when he was just 6 months old, the woman who hadn't contacted us once in 26 years. And she was smiling. Not just smiling. She was smiling wickedly, triumphantly, her eyes locked on mine with pure satisfaction. She placed one perfectly manicured hand on Benjamin's shoulder, the gesture possessive and triumphant. She had won something, and she wanted me to know it. "No," I breathed, understanding flooding through me like ice water. "No. What did you tell him? What lies did you—" "Security," Benjamin said coldly. "Remove him from the property." The 2 security guards started toward me. I backed away, my hands raised in surrender, in supplication. "Benjamin, please, I voice cracked. "Just listen to me for 1 minute. 1 minute, that's all I ask. There's something you need to know. I came here to give you—" "I don't care," he shouted. "I don't care what you came here to give me. I don't want it. I don't want anything from you. You tried to hurt her. You tried to hurt my mother, and I will never forgive you for that." Hurt her? I stared at Isabella, who continued to smile that poisonous smile. What had she told him? "I never hurt her," I said desperately, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I never touched her. Benjamin, she's lying to you. Whatever she told you, it's not true. I would never—" "Enough!" Benjamin roared. He grabbed the iron gates himself and began swinging them shut. "I don't want to hear another word from you. Not another word. You're dead to me. Do you understand? Dead to me." The gates clanged shut with a horrible finality. Benjamin produced a key and locked them from the inside, the metallic click echoing in the sudden silence. I stood there on the wrong side of those gates, in my best suit, with $55 million in my pocket, staring at my son's retreating back. Isabella turned to look at me one more time before they walked away. She raised her hand and gave me a small, mocking wave. Then she patted Benjamin on the back like she was congratulating him, like she was proud of what he had just done. They disappeared into the venue together, leaving me standing there like a beggar at the gates of a palace I had helped build. I turned around slowly, and the full weight of my humiliation crashed over me. All my colleagues were still standing there, Gregory and his wife, Raymond Cooper and his family, Patrick Sullivan, who had driven 2 hours to be here, Frederick Bennett, who had taken the day off work specifically for my son's wedding, 15, maybe 20 of my coworkers and friends, all standing in the parking lot, all staring at me with expressions of shock, pity, and confusion. Behind them, more guests were arriving, stepping out of their cars, looking around in bewilderment at the scene before them. I was supposed to be inside, greeting these people. I was supposed to be the proud father of the groom, showing everyone to their seats, making sure they had programs, basking in the joy of this day. Instead, I was locked outside, like an intruder, like someone dangerous, like someone who didn't belong. "Richard," Gregory approached cautiously, his wife clutching his arm. "What just happened? Why did Benjamin—" "I don't know," I said hollowly.
I honestly don't know. Should we call someone? Should we? No. I straightened my shoulders, trying desperately to salvage some dignity. No, you should all go home. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you came all this way for nothing. The wedding will go on, I'm sure, but I won't be attending, and I can't ask you all to stay when I'm not welcome. But Richard, please. I couldn't look at them anymore. The pity in their eyes was too much to bear. Please, just go. I need to be alone. They left slowly, reluctantly, casting worried glances back at me as they returned to their cars. I heard them talking among themselves, trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. I heard someone say my name. Another voice said, "That poor man." Another voice said, "After everything he's done for that boy." I stood there as they drove away, one by one, until the parking lot was nearly empty. Only a few cars remained, belonging to guests who had arrived early and had already made it inside before the confrontation. When the last car pulled out onto the main road, I finally allowed myself to break down. I sat down on the curb, right there in the parking lot, and I wept. Not quiet tears, but loud, gut-wrenching sobs that came from the deepest part of my soul. I cried for the day I had lost. I cried for the son who had just rejected me. I cried for all the years of sacrifice that apparently meant nothing. I cried for the gift in my pocket that would never be given. Before I continue, let me ask you something. Please, if you're watching this, do me a favor. Subscribe to Pressify Stories by clicking the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Like this video and comment your country below before we continue with the story. I need to know you're there. I need to know someone is listening to what happened to me, because when it was happening, I felt completely alone. Now let me take you back. Let me tell you how I got to that moment, standing outside my son's wedding with $55 million in my pocket and a broken heart in my chest. Because you need to understand the full story. You need to know everything I sacrificed, everything I gave up, everything I endured, so you can understand why that moment destroyed me so completely. My name is Richard Brooks, and I became a father at 19 years old. 19. I was barely more than a child myself. I was working at a grocery store, trying to save money for college, living in a tiny apartment that I shared with 2 roommates. I had big dreams back then. I wanted to be an accountant. I wanted to have a real career, make myself of something, prove that I could succeed despite being an orphan who had grown up bouncing between foster homes. Then I met Isabella Morgan. She was beautiful, confident, and completely out of my league. She was 18, a year younger than me, but she seemed so much more sophisticated, so much more worldly. She was in her last year of high school, already talking about college plans, about traveling, about all the things she wanted to do with her life. We dated for 3 months. 3 months of what I thought was love. 3 months of making plans and talking about the future. 3 months that changed everything. When she told me she was pregnant, I was terrified. I won't lie about that. I was 19 years old, working minimum wage, barely able to take care of myself. But I didn't run. I didn't suggest any alternatives. I told her we would figure it out together. I told her I would be there for her and the baby. I meant it with every fiber of my being. She smiled when I said that. She kissed me and told me she loved me, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe everything would be okay. Maybe we would be one of those young couples who made it work against all odds. Maybe our child would grow up with 2 parents who loved each other and loved him. I was so naive. The pregnancy was difficult. Isabella was sick constantly. She missed school, fell behind in her classes, watched all her college plans start to crumble. I could see the resentment building in her eyes every day. She looked at me like I had trapped her, like I had deliberately ruined her life, even though it took both of us to create this situation. When Benjamin was born, I thought things would change. I thought when she held our son for the first time, when she looked into his tiny face, maternal instinct would kick in. Love would bloom. We would become a family. For a while, it seemed like that might happen. The first few weeks after Benjamin was born, Isabella was attentive. She fed him, changed him, held him close. I worked double shifts at the grocery store to pay for diapers and formula and all the things a baby needs. And when I came home exhausted, I would find Isabella singing to him softly, rocking him to sleep. I thought we were going to make it. Then, when Benjamin was exactly 6 months old, Isabella showed up at my apartment. I was living alone by then, having given up the roommates to make space for her and the baby. I had spent every penny I had saved for college on creating a nursery in the corner of my studio apartment. I had painted the walls yellow. I had bought a crib, second-hand, and repainted it white. I had made it as nice as I could possibly be. Isabella walked in carrying Benjamin in his car seat. She didn't say hello. She didn't smile. She just set the car seat down on my kitchen table, and then she set down a diaper bag beside it.
"I can't do this anymore," she said. I remember staring at her, not understanding. "Can't do what?" "This. Motherhood. Being tied down. I'm 18 years old, Richard. I'm supposed to be preparing for college, not changing diapers and dealing with a screaming baby at 3 in the morning." "But he's your son," I said, my voice shaking. "He's our son. He's your son now," she corrected. "I'm done. I can't pause my education and my entire life just because of a mistake we made." A mistake. She called our beautiful baby boy a mistake. "Isabella, please," I begged. "Don't do this. We can work something out. Maybe your parents can help watch him while you're in school. Maybe we can—" "My parents don't know about him," she said sharply, "and they never will. I'm starting over, Richard. I got accepted to a college overseas. I'm leaving next week." Overseas? I felt like the floor was dropping out from under me. "You're leaving the country?" "I have to. This is my chance to have the life I planned. I'm not going to let one mistake ruin everything." "What about Benjamin? What about your son?" "He'll be fine with you," she said dismissively, already heading toward the door. "You're good with him. You love him. He's better off with you anyway." "Isabella, wait!" I grabbed her arm, desperate. "You can't just abandon your child. What am I supposed to do? I'm 19. I'm barely making enough to pay rent. I have no family, no support system. How am I supposed to raise a baby on my own?" She pulled her arm free and looked at me with cold eyes. "That's not my problem anymore. Figure it out." And she left. She walked out of that apartment, got into a taxi that was waiting outside, and disappeared from our lives. I stood there in shock, staring at the closed door, listening to Benjamin starting to fuss in his car seat behind me. I turned around and looked at my son. He was 6 months old, with huge brown eyes and a little tuft of dark hair. He was looking around the apartment, probably wondering where his mother had gone. He started to cry, that heartbreaking baby cry that demands attention and comfort and love. I picked him up and held him close, and I made a promise right there in that moment. I promised Benjamin that even though his mother had abandoned him, I never would. I promised him that I would sacrifice whatever I needed to sacrifice to give him a good life. I promised him that he would never feel unwanted, never feel like a burden, never feel like a mistake. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. The first year was the hardest thing I've ever experienced. I tried to keep working at the grocery store, but childcare costs ate up almost my entire paycheck. I couldn't afford a proper daycare, so I had to rely on a neighbor who watched babies in her apartment. She charged less than the licensed daycares, but her apartment was cramped and chaotic, with too many children and not enough supervision. Every day I would drop Benjamin off with her, my heart breaking as he'd cry and reach for me. Every day I would work my shift, constantly worried about whether he was okay, whether he was being fed properly, whether he was being held enough. Every day I would pick him up and find him with a dirty diaper, or hungry, or crying inconsolably. I tried to contact Isabella. I called her cell phone, but it was disconnected. I reached out to her parents, but they told me coldly that their daughter was studying overseas and didn't want to be disturbed. When I tried to explain that she had a son, they hung up on me. When I called back, they threatened to get a restraining order if I didn't stop harassing them. She had erased us completely from her life, and she had made sure her family would help her maintain that erasure. I was alone. Completely and utterly alone. I was an orphan myself, you see. I had grown up in the foster system after my parents passed away in a house fire when I was 7 years old. I had no grandparents, no aunts or uncles, no extended family to turn to. I bounced from foster home to foster home until I aged out of the system at 18. I had learned to be self-reliant, to depend on no one but myself. But nothing had prepared me for the responsibility of raising a child alone. There were nights when Benjamin wouldn't stop crying, and I didn't know what to do. I would walk him around the apartment for hours, bouncing him gently, singing to him, trying everything I could think of to comfort him. Sometimes he was hungry. Sometimes his diaper needed changing. Sometimes he was sick and I had to scrape together money for a doctor's visit. And sometimes he just wanted his mother, and there was nothing I could do about that. I gave up on college. That dream died quietly in the middle of sleepless nights and mounting bills. Every penny I earned went to rent, food, diapers, formula. There was nothing left for tuition or books or any kind of future beyond just surviving one more day. We ate simple meals, rice and beans, pasta, whatever was cheapest. I stopped buying new clothes for myself. I wore the same 3 outfits to work until they were threadbare, until my manager quietly pulled me aside and offered to buy me a new work shirt because mine had holes in it. That humiliation stung, but I accepted because I needed to keep my job, and I couldn't afford to spend money on myself when Benjamin needed so many things. But despite all the hardship, despite all the struggle, I loved him. God, I loved that boy so much. When he smiled at me for the first time, I cried with joy. When he took his first steps, stumbling across our tiny apartment into my waiting arms, I felt pride so intense it hurt. When he said "dada" for the first time, I called in sick to work the next day just so I could spend every moment with him, hearing him say it over and over again. He was everything to me. He was my purpose, my reason for getting up in the morning, my motivation to keep fighting even when everything seemed hopeless. Then, when Benjamin was 3 years old, something happened that changed our lives. I was walking home from work one evening, holding Benjamin's hand as we made our way through the downtown area. He was chattering away about his day at the neighbor's apartment, telling me about the toys he had played with, the other children he had met. I was only half listening, exhausted from my shift, worried about the bills piling up on my kitchen table. That's when I saw the wallet on the ground. It was lying on the sidewalk near a bus stop, an expensive-looking wallet that had clearly been dropped. I stopped and picked it up, opening it to see if there was any identification inside. What I found made my breath catch. The wallet was stuffed with cash. I'm talking hundreds of dollars, maybe even 1,000. There were also several credit cards and a driver's license with the name Vincent Coleman. For a moment, I just stood there staring at that cash. $1,000 could change my life. It could pay my rent for 2 months. It could buy Benjamin new clothes, new shoes, proper toys instead of the second-hand things we usually got from thrift stores. It could give us a cushion, a safety net, something I had never had before. I looked down at Benjamin, who was tugging on my hand, asking what I had found. I looked at his worn sneakers with the hole forming in the toe. I looked at his jacket that was getting too small for him. I thought about the bills on my kitchen table and the empty refrigerator at home. Then I thought about the kind of man I wanted to be. The kind of man I wanted Benjamin to see me as.
I couldn't keep the wallet. I knew that. No matter how desperately we needed the money, I couldn't teach my son that it was okay to take things that didn't belong to us. I couldn't show him that desperation justified dishonesty. There was a business card in the wallet with an office address. Coleman Industries, it said. I memorized the address, took Benjamin's hand again, and we walked the 8 blocks to that office building. It was one of the nicest buildings in the city, all glass and steel, with a fancy lobby and security guards and people in expensive suits walking in and out. I felt completely out of place in my worn grocery store uniform, holding my 3-year-old son's hand, asking the security guard if I could see Vincent Coleman. The guard looked skeptical, but he called up to the office anyway. A few minutes later, an older gentleman came down to the lobby. Vincent Coleman was in his 60s, with gray hair and a kind face. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. He looked at me with curiosity. Then his eyes dropped to the wallet I was holding. "You found my wallet," he said, surprise evident in his voice. "Yes, sir," I replied, handing it to him. "It was on the sidewalk downtown. Everything should be there. I didn't take anything." He opened it and checked quickly, then looked back at me with something like wonder in his eyes. "You walked 8 blocks out of your way to return this?" "It was the right thing to do, sir." "With a small child, in the evening, when you could have just kept it and I would never have known?" "I couldn't do that, sir. It wouldn't have been right." He studied me for a long moment, then looked down at Benjamin, who was half hiding behind my legs, staring up at this impressive stranger. "What's your name, son?" Vincent asked me. "Richard Brooks, sir, and this is my son, Benjamin." "Well, Richard Brooks," Vincent said slowly, "you may have just restored my faith in humanity. Do you have a few minutes? I'd like to talk to you." I almost said no. Benjamin was hungry, and we had a long walk home still ahead of us. But there was something about the way Vincent was looking at me, something that made me think this might be important. "Yes, sir," I said. "We have time." He took us up to his office, which was bigger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Expensive artwork hung on the walls. He had his secretary bring us coffee and juice for Benjamin, along with some cookies, which my son devoured hungrily. Vincent asked me about my life. I don't know why I told him everything. Maybe it was because he seemed genuinely interested. Maybe it was because I was so tired of carrying everything alone. Maybe it was because he had kind eyes that reminded me of the one good foster father I'd had growing up. I told him about Isabella leaving, about raising Benjamin alone, about working at the grocery store and barely making ends meet. I told him about my dreams of going to college, dreams that had died when I became a single father. I told him about the struggles and the sacrifices and the constant fear that I wasn't doing enough, that I was failing my son. He listened to everything without interrupting, his expression growing more thoughtful with each revelation. When he finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Richard," he said finally, "I'm going to make you an offer, and I want you to think carefully before you answer." "An offer, sir?" "I want to sponsor your education. Full scholarship. You can go to college, study accounting like you said you wanted to do. I'll pay for everything. Tuition, books, fees, and I'll also provide a monthly stipend so you can afford proper childcare for Benjamin while you're in classes." I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "Sir, I can't accept. Why not?" he asked. "You returned my wallet when you could have kept it and I never would have known. You're clearly a person of integrity. You're working hard to provide for your son.
You deserve a chance to better your situation. But why would you do this for a stranger? His expression grew sad. Because I know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like to need help and not have anyone to turn to. And because you remind me of someone I lost. I learned later that Vincent had lost his 2 children in a terrible car accident 10 years earlier. His son had been 25, his daughter had been 22. They had been driving home from a family dinner when a drunk driver crossed into their lane. The crash was fatal for both of them. His wife had passed away from cancer a few years before the accident, so when he lost his children, he lost his entire family. He threw himself into his work, building his company into a massive success, but all the money in the world couldn't fill the void left by his children's absence. He never remarried. He never had more children. He was too old now, he said, and besides, no one could replace the children he had lost. But he had money, more money than he could ever spend, and no one to leave it to. When I returned his wallet, he saw an opportunity to help someone who reminded him of his own son. He saw a young man trying to do the right thing despite impossible circumstances, and he saw Benjamin, a child who needed opportunities and support. I accepted his offer. How could I not? It was the answer to every prayer I had whispered in the dark when Benjamin was sleeping and I was lying awake worrying about our future. Vincent became more than a benefactor. He became a friend, a mentor, a father figure to me, and a grandfather figure to Benjamin. He came to Benjamin's preschool graduations and school plays. He taught me about business and investing. He took us to nice restaurants and showed us a world we had never experienced. When I struggled with my accounting classes, he hired a tutor for me. When Benjamin got sick and needed expensive medication, Vincent paid for it without hesitation. When our apartment had a plumbing problem that the landlord wouldn't fix, Vincent helped us move to a better place. He didn't do these things to make us feel indebted. He did them because he genuinely cared about us. Benjamin called him Grandpa Vincent, and Vincent's face would light up every time he heard it. I graduated from college with honors. I got a job at a reputable accounting firm. My salary wasn't enormous, but it was stable, and combined with what I had saved from Vincent's stipend, we were finally comfortable. Benjamin could have name-brand clothes instead of thrift store finds. We could afford a 2-bedroom apartment. We could go out for pizza on Fridays without me having to calculate how much it would cost. Through all of this, I tried to contact Isabella multiple times. I sent emails to her old address. I reached out through social media. I even hired a private investigator once in my tax return money, trying to find her so Benjamin could know his mother. The investigator found her in Europe. She was dating a billionaire businessman, living a life of luxury and privilege. She had changed her last name, created an entirely new identity. When the investigator approached her and mentioned that she had a son in the States, she became angry and threatened legal action. She sent me one single email in response to years of attempts to contact her. "I made my choice when I left," it said. "I don't want Benjamin in my life. I don't want anyone in my new life to know I ever had a child. Stop trying to contact me. If you persist, I will get a restraining order and claim harassment. I've built a new life, and I won't let you destroy it." I read that email to Benjamin one night when he asked again why he didn't have a mother like the other kids at school. He was 10 years old enough to understand, old enough to process the truth. I showed him the email, and I watched his face crumble as he read her cold, heartless words. I held him while he cried, and I promised him that her rejection had nothing to do with him. He was lovable. He was worthy. He was wonderful. She was the one who was broken, not him. After that, we stopped trying to contact her. Benjamin and I became a unit, just the two of us against the world. We had Vincent, we had our little found family, and that was enough.
Vincent and I never kept secrets from each other. He knew everything about my relationship with Isabella. He knew about her rejection of Benjamin. He knew how hard I had worked to build a life from my son. And I knew everything about his pain, his loss, his lonely existence despite all his wealth. He told me once when we were having dinner at his house that I had given him a reason to keep living. After his children passed away, he said, he had considered ending it all. What was the point of all his success and money when he had no one to share it with? But then I came along and returned his wallet, and he saw an opportunity to channel his grief into something positive. Helping us helped him heal. Watching Benjamin grow helped him feel connected to life again. He said that in many ways, I had saved him just as much as he had saved me. When Benjamin turned 21 and graduated from college himself, Vincent fell ill. Cancer, the doctor said, aggressive and already advanced by the time they found it. He had maybe 6 months to live. Those 6 months were heartbreaking. Vincent deteriorated quickly, spending more and more time in the hospital. Benjamin and I visited him every day. We held his hand, we told him stories, we reminded him of all the good times we had shared. One afternoon, about 2 weeks before he passed, Vincent asked to speak to me privately. Benjamin left the hospital room, and Vincent reached for my hand with his frail, trembling fingers. "Richard," he said, his voice weak, "I need to tell you something important." "What is it, Vincent? Do you need anything? Are you in pain?" "No pain right now," he assured me, "but I need to talk to you about my will." "Vincent, please, don't worry about that right now. Just focus on—" "Listen to me," he insisted, squeezing my hand with what little strength he had left. "I have no wife. I have no children. I have no family to leave my estate to. I've already arranged everything with my lawyers. When I pass, everything goes to you." I stared in shock. "Vincent, I can't accept." "You can and you will," he said firmly. "You're the closest thing to a son I've had since I lost my boy. Benjamin is like my grandson. You two are my family. This money means nothing to me now. I can't take it with me, but you can use it to build a better life, to give Benjamin opportunities, to maybe help other people the way I helped you." "How much?" I whispered, almost afraid to ask. $55 million, he said. "After taxes, charitable donations, and legal fees, that's what will be left. It's yours, Richard. Use it wisely. Use it to honor the second chance you gave me when you returned my wallet all those years ago." I was crying too hard to respond. I just held his hand and nodded, and he smiled peacefully, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. 2 weeks later, Vincent Coleman passed away quietly in his sleep. Benjamin and I were with him at the end. We held his hands as he took his last breath, and we mourned him like we would have mourned a beloved father and grandfather. The reading of the will confirmed what he had told me. $55 million. After taxes, charitable contributions, and legal fees, that's what came to me. The lawyers handed me documents, bank account information, investment portfolios. It was more money than I had ever imagined possessing in my entire life. Benjamin knew that Vincent had left us something, but I never told him the exact amount. I kept it vague, telling him that Vincent had been generous and that we would be comfortable. But I didn't reveal the true extent of the inheritance. Why? Because I had a plan. I wanted Benjamin to build his own life first. I wanted him to get a job, to work hard, to understand the value of earning his own way. I had raised him to be independent, to be self-sufficient, to never take anything for granted. If he knew he was the son of a multimillionaire, would that change him? Would it make him lazy or entitled? Would it rob him of the satisfaction of achieving things through his own efforts? I couldn't risk it. So I kept the money secret, investing it carefully, watching it grow, and planning for the perfect moment to reveal it. That moment, I decided, would be his wedding day. I imagined the scene so many times. I would pull him aside after the ceremony, maybe during the reception when he was glowing with happiness, surrounded by his new wife and friends. I would hand him the check and watch his face transform with shock and joy. I would tell him that this was his gift, his legacy from the man who loved him like a grandson, his foundation for building the future he deserved. It was going to be perfect. After Vincent passed, I continued working at the accounting firm. I lived modestly, the same as I always had. The only change was that I no longer worried about money. If Benjamin needed something, I could provide it without stress. If an emergency came up, I had resources to handle it. But I never flaunted wealth, never lived extravagantly, never gave any indication that our financial situation had changed dramatically. Benjamin thrived. He graduated from college with a degree in business management. He got a good job at a marketing firm. He worked hard, earned promotions, built a reputation as someone reliable and talented. I was so proud of him. Through all this, I never dated. I never pursued romantic relationships. People at work would try to set me up, telling me I was still young enough to find love, to build a life with someone. I was only 45 years old when Vincent passed, still plenty of time to meet someone and start over. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I had devoted my entire adult life to raising Benjamin. Every decision I made, every sacrifice I endured, every moment of my existence had been centered around being his father. The idea of bringing someone new into our lives felt wrong somehow, like I would be dividing my attention, diluting the bond we had built. I told myself I would wait until Benjamin was settled, until he was married, starting his own family, building his own life. Then, maybe then, I could think about myself. I could consider finding companionship, experiencing the kind of romantic relationship I'd never really had. I had been 19 when Benjamin was born. I had dated Isabella for 3 months before she got pregnant. That was the sum total of my romantic experience. I'd never been in love, never experienced a deep partnership with someone, never known what it was like to have someone choose me and stay with me. But I was okay with that. Benjamin was enough. Being his father was enough. Then, 3 years after Vincent passed, Benjamin came home one evening with a huge smile on his face.
"Dad," he said, his eyes shining with excitement, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" I asked, already smiling at his obvious joy. "I met someone. Her name is Sophia Parker. And Dad, she's amazing. She's smart and funny and beautiful, and I think she might be the one." My heart swelled with happiness for him. "Tell me about her." He talked for 2 hours straight, barely pausing for breath. Sophia worked in his office. They had been friends for a year before he finally worked up the courage to ask her out. They had been dating for 6 months, keeping it quiet because they worked together, but now they were serious, and he wanted me to meet her. I met Sophia the following weekend, and I understood immediately why Benjamin had fallen for her. She was indeed smart and funny and kind. She looked at my son with genuine affection. She asked me thoughtful questions about my life and my work. She thanked me for raising such a wonderful man. I gave them my blessing, and they started talking about the future. The engagement came a year later. Benjamin proposed at the same restaurant where I had first met Sophia, getting down on one knee in front of everyone and asking her to marry him. She said yes through happy tears, and I sat at the table watching them embrace, feeling overwhelmed with joy and pride. My boy was starting his own family. The child I had raised alone, the baby whose mother had abandoned him, the son I had sacrificed everything for, was now a successful, happy young man about to embark on the greatest adventure of his life. This was what I had worked for. This moment justified every sleepless night, every missed meal, every sacrifice I had made. We started planning the wedding immediately. Benjamin and Sophia wanted a spring wedding, something elegant but not too formal. We looked at venues together, the three of us, and fell in love with Riverside Manor. It was expensive, but I insisted on contributing a significant amount, telling Benjamin I had savings from my years of careful budgeting. The truth was, I could have paid for the entire wedding 100 times over and not felt it. But I didn't want to raise suspicions, didn't want Benjamin asking questions about money I supposedly didn't have. Over the following months, we tasted cakes and selected flowers and debated color schemes. I went with Benjamin to get fitted for his tuxedo. I helped Sophia's parents plan the rehearsal dinner. I invited all my colleagues from work, all my neighbors, everyone who had been part of our journey. I was going to arrive at that wedding with $55 million in my pocket, in the form of a certified check made out to Benjamin Brooks. I had the check printed weeks in advance, kept it in a safety deposit box at the bank, took it out the morning of the wedding, and placed it carefully in my inside jacket pocket. Everything was perfect. Everything was going according to plan. And then, the day before the wedding, Isabella Morgan reappeared. I was at home, pressing my suit one final time, making sure every detail was perfect for the next day. Benjamin was already at the hotel with Sophia, settling in for the night before their big day. The rehearsal dinner had gone beautifully. Everyone was excited and happy. My phone rang. It was Benjamin. "Dad," and I could hear something strange in his voice. Tension, maybe? Or confusion? Something unexpected happened. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately, worried that something had gone wrong with the wedding plans. "My mother is here." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "Isabella. She's here. She showed up at the hotel an hour ago. She wants to talk to me." My mind was racing. Isabella? After 26 years of complete silence, she chose the day before her son's wedding to suddenly reappear? "Benjamin, I don't think that's a good idea," I said carefully. "She abandoned you. She made it clear she wanted nothing to do with you. Why would she show up now?" "I don't know, Dad, but she's my mother. Don't I deserve to at least hear what she has to say?" "Of course you do, son. I just want you to be careful. She hurt you once. I don't want her to hurt you again, especially not right before the happiest day of your life." "I'll be careful," he promised. "I just wanted you to know. She got a room at the same hotel. She said she wants to attend the wedding tomorrow." Every instinct I had was screaming danger. This woman had rejected our son, had threatened legal action when I tried to contact her, had built an entire new life that specifically excluded the child she had given birth to. Now she was here the day before his wedding, asking to be part of his life? Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. "Benjamin, please think about this carefully," I said. "You don't owe her anything. You don't have to let her come to the wedding just because she showed up. This is your day, yours and Sophia's. Don't let her take that from you." "Dad, I appreciate your concern, but I need to do this. I need to hear what she has to say. I've spent my whole life wondering about her, wondering why she left, wondering if she ever thought about me. This might be my only chance to get answers." I couldn't argue with that. As much as I wanted to protect him, I understood his need for closure, for answers, for some kind of connection to the mother who had abandoned him. "Okay," I said reluctantly, "but if you need me, I'm here. Call me any time, day or night. I can be at that hotel in 20 minutes if you need me." "I know, Dad. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow at the venue." We hung up, and I sat there in my living room, staring at the freshly pressed suit hanging on the door, feeling a sense of dread I couldn't explain. I should have gone to that hotel. I should have insisted on being there when Benjamin talked to Isabella. I should have protected my son the way I had protected him his entire life. But I didn't. I respected his wishes. I stayed home and tried to sleep, though I barely managed a few hours of restless dozing. The next morning, I woke up early, showered, dressed in my best suit. I checked the inside pocket 3 times to make sure the check was there. $55 million. The culmination of everything Vincent had given us, everything I had saved and invested and grown over the years. This was going to be the best day of my life. I was going to watch my son get married, and then I was going to change his life forever with the gift in my pocket. I drove to Riverside Manor with my heart full of anticipation and joy. The morning was beautiful, sunny and warm, but not too hot. Perfect wedding weather. I arrived early, wanting to be there to greet guests, to soak in every moment of this day. I parked my car and walked toward the venue entrance, admiring the white roses and the elegant decorations. Other guests were arriving, parking their cars, calling out greetings to each other. My coworkers started showing up, waving to me, congratulating me, telling me how excited they were for the ceremony. I felt like the luckiest man in the world.
Then Benjamin emerged from the hotel walkway. I raised my hand to wave at him, ready to call out a greeting, ready to tell him how handsome he looked in his tuxedo. But the expression on his face stopped me cold. He looked at me with pure hatred. And behind him, barely visible in the shadows of the walkway, I saw her. Isabella Morgan. She was smiling. Not a warm smile, not a mother's smile. It was cold and cruel and triumphant. And I knew, in that instant, that she had destroyed everything. "Don't you dare call me that!" Benjamin's voice cut through the morning air, sharp and angry and directed at me. I stood frozen, watching my entire world collapse around me. Guests stopped talking. The string quartet fell silent. Everyone turned to watch as my son, the boy I had raised alone, the child I had sacrificed everything for, walked toward me with fury in his eyes. "Benjamin, what's wrong?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Son, are you okay?" "I said don't call me that." He was getting closer, and I could see his hands were trembling with rage. Behind him, Isabella had stepped out of the shadows, and she was watching the scene unfold with satisfaction. What had she told him? What lies had she whispered in his ear during the night while I slept, trusting that my son knew me, trusted me, loved me? "You have some nerve showing up here," Benjamin spat. "After everything you've done, after everything you've lied about." Lied about? I was completely lost. "Benjamin, I don't understand. What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about. How could you, Dad? How could you try to hurt her? How could you lie to me my entire life?" People were gathering around us now. I could see Gregory and his wife, Raymond and Patrick, all my colleagues and friends watching this confrontation with shock and confusion. And I could feel the check in my pocket, the $55 million that was supposed to be my gift, my surprise, my way of showing Benjamin that every sacrifice had been worth it. "Benjamin, please," I said, my voice shaking. "Let's go somewhere private and talk about this. Whatever your mother told you, don't you dare blame her. She told me the truth. She told me what you did. She told me how you tried to hurt her, how you've been poisoning my mind against her my whole life, how you're just using me as your retirement plan. Retirement plan? What was he talking about? Benjamin, none of that is true. I never hurt your mother. I never poisoned your mind. I raised you because she abandoned you. I loved you. I sacrificed everything for you. Liar! The word echoed across the venue grounds. You're a liar and a manipulator, and I don't want you here. This is my wedding day, and I don't want you anywhere near it. Please, son, I was begging now, tears streaming down my face. Please, don't do this, not today. I have something for you. I came here to give you something important. Just let me explain. I don't want anything from you. And then he pushed me. His hands connected with my chest, and I stumbled backward, nearly falling. Gasps erupted from the watching crowd. I heard someone shout in protest, but Benjamin wasn't finished. Get out, he screamed, pointing toward the parking lot. Get out and never come back. You're not my father anymore. You're nothing to me. Benjamin, no. But he was already walking toward the iron gates. Security guards appeared, moving to flank him. Isabella emerged fully from the walkway now, and she walked right up behind Benjamin, placing her hand on his shoulder in a possessive, triumphant gesture. She looked directly at me, and in that moment, I saw pure evil in her eyes. She had planned this. She had appeared the day before the wedding specifically to turn Benjamin against me. She had spent the night filling his head with lies, with twisted versions of the truth, with poison designed to destroy the relationship I had spent 26 years building. And it had worked. Benjamin turned his back on me and walked into the venue with Isabella at his side, leaving me standing outside the locked gates with $55 million in my pocket and a shattered heart in my chest. I turned around slowly, and the full horror of my situation became clear. All my colleagues were still there. Gregory Mitchell, standing with his mouth open in shock. Raymond Cooper, holding his wife's hand, looking at me with pity. Patrick Sullivan, who had driven 2 hours to be here, staring in disbelief. Frederick Bennett, shaking his head sadly. Behind them, more guests were pulling into the parking lot, getting out of their cars, looking around in confusion at the scene before them. They had all come here to celebrate with me. They had all taken off work, gotten dressed up, driven across the city to witness my son's wedding and share in my joy. Instead, they had witnessed my complete humiliation. Richard, what just happened? Why would Benjamin do that to you?
I don't know, I said, and my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. His mother showed up yesterday. She must have told him lies. She must have convinced him I did something terrible. But you raised him, Raymond said, joining us. You raised him alone. Everyone knows how much you sacrificed for that boy. It doesn't matter, I said quietly. He believes her. He chose to believe her over me. More guests were arriving, stepping out of their cars, looking confused about why everyone was standing in the parking lot instead of going into the venue. I couldn't do this. I couldn't stand here and explain to each person what had happened. I couldn't watch their expressions turn from excitement to pity. I couldn't bear the weight of their sympathy and their questions. Please, I said to Gregory and the others who had gathered around me. Please just go home. I'm so sorry you came all this way. The wedding will go on, I'm sure. Benjamin will get married today. But I won't be there, and I can't ask you to stay when I'm not welcome. "Richard, you can't be serious," Patrick protested. "We came here for you. We're not going to just leave you like this." "Please," I repeated, and I couldn't keep the desperation out of my voice. "Please just go. I need to be alone. I need to process this. I can't do that with everyone watching me." They left reluctantly, one by one, getting back into their cars and driving away. Some of them hugged me first. Some of them told me to call if I needed anything. Some of them just looked at me with such profound sadness that it made everything worse. The newly arriving guests, seeing everyone leaving, were confused. Some of them approached the gates and were apparently told by security or by wedding staff that there had been a family situation and the ceremony would proceed, but with limited attendance. I saw them looking back at me, standing alone in the parking lot, and I saw them put the pieces together. Within an hour, the parking lot was mostly empty. Only a few cars remained, belonging to guests who had arrived very early and had already been escorted inside before the confrontation. I stood there alone, my hand in my pocket, fingers touching the check that would never be given. $55 million. It might as well have been 55 cents for all the good it did me now. I walked slowly to my car and sat in the driver's seat, but I couldn't bring myself to start the engine. I just sat there, staring at the venue in the distance, at the gates that had been locked against me, at the place where my son was getting married without me. I pulled the check out of my pocket and looked at it. Certified check, made out to Benjamin Brooks, $55 million. The entire inheritance from Vincent Coleman, carefully invested and grown over the years, meant to be a wedding gift that would set up my son for life. Meant to be the culmination of everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed for, everything I had dreamed about during all those hard years when we had nothing. I had imagined this moment so many times. Benjamin's face when I handed him the check. His shock, his joy, his gratitude. The pride I would feel knowing that I had given my son not just love and stability and a good upbringing, but also financial security that would allow him to build any kind of future he wanted. Instead, I was sitting in my car in an empty parking lot, crying so hard I could barely see the numbers on the check. How had this happened? How had Isabella managed to destroy everything in just one night? What lies had she told? What poison had she dripped into Benjamin's ear while he slept? And why now? Why had she appeared after 26 years of complete silence? What did she want? What was she trying to accomplish? I didn't have answers to any of these questions. All I knew was that my son had chosen to believe her over me. He had chosen the mother who abandoned him over the father who raised him. He had pushed me out of his wedding, out of his life, without even giving me a chance to defend myself. The ceremony would be starting soon. I could picture it in my mind. Benjamin standing at the altar, looking handsome in his tuxedo. Sophia walking down the aisle in her white dress. The officiant asking if anyone objected to the marriage, the exchange of vows and rings. And I wouldn't be there to see any of it. I wouldn't be there to watch my son promise his life to the woman he loved. I wouldn't be there to cry tears of joy when they kissed. I wouldn't be there to hug him afterward and tell him how proud I was. I wouldn't be there to give my speech at the reception, the speech I had written and rewritten a dozen times, trying to find the perfect words to express what it meant to be Benjamin's father. The check in my hand felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I folded it carefully and put it back in my pocket. Then I started my car and drove home, leaving behind the venue, the celebration, the happiest day that would never be mine. I drove home in a daze, barely aware of the traffic around me, running red lights without noticing, nearly causing accidents at intersections. Other drivers honked at me, shouted out their windows, but I couldn't hear them. All I could hear was Benjamin's voice screaming at me to get out, telling me I was nothing to him. rejecting 26 years of love and sacrifice with a few cruel words. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for another 30 minutes, unable to move. My neighbors walked past, some of them waving, asking if I was okay. I nodded automatically, giving them weak smiles, pretending everything was fine. They knew I was supposed to be at my son's wedding. They had seen me leave that morning in my best suit, glowing with pride and excitement. Now here I was, home before noon, my suit wrinkled from sitting in the car, my face swollen from crying, my entire world shattered. I forced myself to get out of the car and go inside. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty. I had lived here alone with Benjamin for so many years, and then alone after he moved out, but it had never felt this lonely before. The silence was oppressive, suffocating. I took off my jacket carefully and hung it on the back of a chair. The check was still in the inside pocket. I could see the outline of it through the fabric. $55 million that meant absolutely nothing now. I made myself a cup of coffee, even though my hands were shaking so badly, I spilled grounds all over the counter. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Benjamin and I had eaten countless meals together, where I had helped him with homework, where we had talked about his dreams and fears and hopes for the future. The coffee went cold while I stared at nothing, replaying the morning over and over in my mind. Benjamin's face, twisted with hatred, Isabella's wicked smile, the sound of the gates clanging shut, the pity in my colleague's eyes, the weight of the check in my pocket, a gift that would never be given. What did Isabella tell him? What lies had she manufactured that were so convincing, so believable, that Benjamin instantly turned against the father who raised him? She had said I tried to hurt her. She had said I was using Benjamin as a retirement plan. She had said I had been poisoning his mind against her his whole life. All lies, complete and utter lies.
I had never touched Isabella in anger. I had never even raised my voice at her, not even when she abandoned our son. I had tried to contact her over the years, yes, but only so Benjamin could know his mother, only so he wouldn't grow up feeling unwanted and rejected. And as for using him as a retirement plan, I had $55 million that I was planning to give him. How is that using him? But Benjamin had believed her, without question, without hesitation, without giving me a chance to defend myself. He had believed every word she said. That hurt more than anything else. Not the rejection itself, but the fact that he had so easily believed I could do those things. After everything we had been through together, after all the years of love and trust and partnership, he had taken a stranger's word over mine. Because that's what Isabella was, a stranger. She hadn't been there when Benjamin had nightmares as a child. She hadn't been there when he was sick with the flu, when he fell off his bike and needed stitches, when he struggled with math homework and needed patient explanation. She hadn't been there for his first day of school, his graduation, his first job interview. I had been there for all of it. Every single moment of Benjamin's life, I had been there. And it meant nothing to him. She had erased 26 years of fatherhood in one night. I don't know how long I sat at that kitchen table. Hours, maybe. The sun moved across the sky, shadows lengthening across the floor. My phone rang several times, but I didn't answer it. I couldn't talk to anyone. I couldn't explain what had happened. Couldn't bear to hear the pity in their voices. Eventually, as evening approached, I stood up and walked to my bedroom. I took off my suit, hanging it carefully in the closet even though I never wanted to see it again. I put on old sweatpants and a worn t-shirt.
I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the broken man staring back at me. I pulled the check out of my jacket pocket and carried it to my desk. I sat down and just looked at it, this piece of paper that represented Vincent's legacy, his love for us, his belief in our family. Vincent had given me this money because he saw me as a son. He had trusted me to use it wisely, to honor his memory, to build a better life. He had died peacefully, believing that Benjamin and I would be taken care of, that his sacrifice would mean something. What would he think if he could see me now? Sitting alone in my apartment, rejected by the boy he had loved like a grandson, holding a check that would never fulfill its intended purpose? I opened my desk drawer and placed the check inside, then closed the drawer firmly. I couldn't look at it anymore. It hurt too much. My phone rang again. This time I checked the caller ID. It was Gregory from work. I answered reluctantly. "Hello?" "Richard, thank God." Gregory's voice was filled with relief. "I've been calling you for hours. Are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm home," I said, flatly. "I'm so sorry about what happened this morning. I don't understand it. None of us do. Benjamin has always spoken so highly of you. Why would he suddenly turn on you like that?" "His mother told him lies," I said, my voice breaking. "She showed up the day before the wedding and filled his head with lies about me." "What kind of lies?" "I don't even know exactly. Something about me trying to hurt her, something about me being toxic and manipulative. All lies, Gregory. Every word of it." But he believed her. There was a long pause on the other end. "Richard, this is insane. Everyone at the office knows how much you've sacrificed for that boy. We've all watched you raise him alone, work double shifts to provide for him, turn down promotions because they would have taken time away from him. There's no way you're toxic or manipulative." "Try telling that to Benjamin," I said bitterly. "Have you tried calling him, explaining your side?" "What would be the point? He made his choice this morning when he locked those gates. He doesn't want to hear from me." "Richard, you can't just give up. He's your son. This is probably just wedding day stress and his mother's manipulation. Give him some time to calm down, then reach out. Once he thinks clearly, he'll realize she was lying." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that Benjamin would come to his senses, would remember all the years we had shared together, would realize that Isabella was playing some twisted game. But the look in his eyes that morning was not confusion or stress. It was genuine hatred. He had meant every word he said to me. "Maybe," I said to Gregory, not believing it. "Maybe you're right." We talked for a few more minutes before I made excuses to hang up. I appreciated Gregory's concern, but I couldn't handle the conversation. I couldn't handle anything. I spent the rest of the evening sitting in front of the television, not really watching anything, just letting the noise fill the silence. I didn't eat dinner. I couldn't imagine forcing food down my throat when my stomach was twisted in knots. Around midnight, I finally went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with questions that had no answers. Why had Isabella come back? What did she want? Was this revenge for something? But revenge for what? I had never done anything to her except love our son and try to give him a good life. Maybe she was jealous. Maybe she heard that Benjamin was successful and happy, and she wanted to insert herself into his life now that the hard work of raising him was done. Maybe she wanted to reap the benefits without having put in any of the effort. Or maybe she was just cruel. Maybe destroying our relationship gave her some sick satisfaction. Maybe she had spent 26 years resenting the fact that I had succeeded where she had failed, that I had raised a good man despite all the odds against us. I would never know. Benjamin wasn't going to tell me, and I certainly wasn't going to hear from Isabella directly. The days that followed were the darkest of my life, darker even than those early years when I was struggling to raise an infant alone. Back then, at least I had purpose. I had Benjamin depending on me. I had a reason to get up every morning, a reason to keep fighting. Now I had nothing. I went through the motions of living. I got up, I went to work, I came home. My college tried to talk to me, tried to offer comfort and support, but I couldn't engage with them. I did my job mechanically, efficiently, but without any real thought or care. Gregory pulled me aside one day, about a week after the wedding. "Richard, you need to talk to someone. A therapist, a counselor, someone. You can't keep going on like this." "I'm fine," I lied. "You're not fine. You look terrible. You've lost weight. You barely speak to anyone. You're going through something traumatic, and you need help processing it." "What's there to process? My son hates me. His mother poisoned me against me. There's nothing I can do about it. Life goes on."
Richard, I said I'm fine, Gregory. Please, just let it go. He didn't let it go, of course. He talked to HR, expressed concerns about my mental state. They called me in for a meeting, gently suggested I take some time off, maybe see a counselor through the company's employee assistance program. I refused. Work was the only thing keeping me functional. If I took time off, if I had nothing but empty days to fill, I would completely fall apart. 2 weeks passed, then 3, then a month. No word from Benjamin. No calls, no texts, no emails. Nothing. I checked his social media accounts obsessively, even though it hurt to see pictures of his wedding day. Sophia looked beautiful in her dress. Benjamin looked happy, grinning broadly in every photo. There were pictures of them cutting the cake, their first dance, surrounded by friends and family. Isabella was in several of the photos, standing close to Benjamin, her hand on his arm, smiling that same wicked smile I had seen the morning of the wedding. She had inserted herself into his life completely, claiming her place as his mother after 26 years of absence. And I was nowhere in those pictures. Erased, deleted, like I had never existed. The comments on the photos were all congratulatory and happy. No one mentioned the drama at the gates. No one asked where the groom's father was. Either Benjamin had told people I was sick, or traveling, or he had simply never mentioned me at all. I stopped looking at social media after that. It was too painful. 6 weeks after the wedding, I hit rock bottom. I came home from work one evening, poured myself a glass of whiskey even though I rarely drank, and sat in my living room thinking about how pointless everything was. I had spent my entire adult life sacrificing for a son who now wanted nothing to do with me. I had no romantic partner, no other children, no close family. I had colleagues and acquaintances, but no real friends outside of work. What was the point of continuing? What was I living for? I looked at the desk drawer where I had hidden the check. $55 million that would never be used for its intended purpose. Money that sat there mocking me, reminding me of all my failed dreams and broken hopes. I could give it to charity, I suppose, donate it all to some worthy cause. At least then it would do some good in the world, even if it couldn't fulfill Vincent's wishes. But the thought of giving away Vincent's legacy, the money he had worked so hard to accumulate and had trusted me to steward, felt like another failure. Like I was admitting defeat, acknowledging that I had failed in every possible way. I sat there with the whiskey glass in my hand, spiraling deeper into despair, when my phone rang.
I almost didn't answer. I had been ignoring most calls for weeks now, but something made me look at the caller ID. It was Charlotte Foster. Charlotte! I hadn't thought about her in weeks, hadn't thought about anything except my own misery and loss. Charlotte was a widow who worked in the building next to my office. We had met a few years ago at a work event, struck up a conversation, and had been friendly acquaintances ever since. We would sometimes have coffee together, chat about our days, share stories about our lives. She was kind and funny, with warm brown eyes and a gentle smile. She was a few years younger than me, with 4 children ranging from ages 8 to 16. Her husband had passed away from a sudden heart attack 3 years earlier, leaving her to raise their kids alone. We had bonded over our experiences as single parents, though her situation was different from mine. She had been married, had loved her husband deeply, and was still grieving his loss. I had never really had a partner, had raised Benjamin alone from infancy. Sometimes during our coffee conversations, I had felt something stirring, an attraction, maybe, a curiosity about what it might be like to be more than friends. But I had always pushed those feelings aside. I couldn't pursue a relationship while Benjamin still needed me, while I was still focused on being his father first and foremost. Now Benjamin didn't need me anymore. Benjamin didn't want me in his life at all. I answered the phone. Hello? Richard. Charlotte's voice was concerned. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Are you okay? I heard something happened at your son's wedding. How did you hear about that? I asked, surprised. Gregory mentioned it when I ran into him at the coffee shop. He's worried about you. He said you're not doing well. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. I'm fine, Charlotte. Really. You're not fine. Nobody would be fine after what Gregory described. Richard, can I come over? I don't like the idea of you being alone right now. Charlotte, you don't have to. I want to, she said firmly. Give me your address. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I was too tired to argue. I gave her my address and then sat there wondering if I should tidy up the apartment, wondering if I should hide the whiskey glass, wondering if I was making a mistake letting someone see me like this. 23 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Charlotte standing there with a grocery bag in her arms. She took one look at my face, and her expression crumpled with sympathy. Oh, Richard, she said softly, and stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. She went straight to my kitchen and started unpacking the bag. Soup, bread, fresh fruit, coffee, tea, comfort food, the kind of things you bring to someone who's grieving. When did you last eat a real meal? She asked, putting a pot of soup on the stove to heat up. I don't remember, I admitted. That's what I thought. You're going to eat this soup, and then you're going to tell me everything that happened. I wanted to refuse, wanted to keep everything bottled up inside like I had been doing for weeks, but Charlotte had a way about her, a gentle insistence that made it impossible to resist. So I ate the soup she served me, and then I told her everything. I told her about Isabella abandoning Benjamin. I told her about raising him alone, about Vincent and his generosity, about the $55 million inheritance I had kept secret. I told her about planning to give it to Benjamin as a wedding gift, about Isabella's sudden appearance, about the confrontation at the gates. I told her how Benjamin had pushed me away, how he had believed his mother's lies without question, how I had been locked out of the most important day of my son's life. Charlotte listened to all of it without interrupting, her eyes growing wider with each revelation. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment.
Richard, she finally said, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. What you did, raising Benjamin alone, sacrificing everything for him, that's remarkable. And what happened at the wedding wasn't your fault. None of this is your fault. Then why does it feel like it is? I asked, my voice breaking. Because you're a good father. Good fathers blame themselves when things go wrong with their children, even when they've done nothing wrong. But Benjamin's choice to believe his mother's lies, that's on him, not you." "He's my son," I whispered. "How do I just let him go?" "You don't," Charlotte said gently. "You give him time. You hope that eventually he'll realize the truth. But in the meantime, you can't destroy yourself waiting for him to come back. You have to live your life, Richard. You have to find happiness, even if it's not the happiness you planned on." "I don't know how to do that." "Then let me help you." She started coming over regularly after that. At first, just to bring me food, to make sure I was eating and taking care of myself. Then she started staying longer, talking with me about everything and nothing. She told me about her children, about her struggles as a widow, about her own grief and how she had learned to live with it. Slowly, very slowly, I started to feel a little less broken. Charlotte had a way of making me laugh, even when I thought I would never laugh again. She would tell me ridiculous stories about her kids' antics, or about customers at the insurance office where she worked, or about her attempts to fix things around her house that always seemed to go hilariously wrong. She never pushed me to talk about Benjamin if I didn't want to. She never told me I should try to contact him or that I should just move on. She simply let me feel what I was feeling, gave me space to grieve, and reminded me that I was more than just Benjamin's father. "You know," she said one evening about 3 months after the wedding, "you've spent your entire adult life being a parent. You became a father at 19 and never stopped being one. You never dated, never had relationships, never did anything just for yourself." "Benjamin needed me," I said. "I know he did, and you were an amazing father to him. But Richard, you're 45 years old. You're still young. You have so much life ahead of you. Don't you think you deserve to experience things you've never experienced? Love, partnership, romance?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized that I had been falling for Charlotte for weeks now without even acknowledging it. The way my heart lifted when I saw her name on my phone, the way I looked forward to her visits, the way her presence made my apartment feel less empty and my life feel less pointless. "I don't know how to do that," I admitted. "Then let me help you." She started coming over regularly after that. At first, just to bring me food, to make sure I was eating and taking care of myself. Then she started staying longer, talking with me about everything and nothing. She told me about her children, about her struggles as a widow, about her own grief and how she had learned to live with it. Slowly, very slowly, I started to feel a little less broken. Charlotte had a way of making me laugh, even when I thought I would never laugh again. She would tell me ridiculous stories about her kids' antics, or about customers at the insurance office where she worked, or about her attempts to fix things around her house that always seemed to go hilariously wrong. She never pushed me to talk about Benjamin if I didn't want to. She never told me I should try to contact him or that I should just move on. She simply let me feel what I was feeling, gave me space to grieve, and reminded me that I was more than just Benjamin's father. "You know," she said one evening about 3 months after the wedding, "you've spent your entire adult life being a parent. You became a father at 19 and never stopped being one. You never dated, never had relationships, never did anything just for yourself." "Benjamin needed me," I said. "I know he did, and you were an amazing father to him. But Richard, you're 45 years old. You're still young. You have so much life ahead of you. Don't you think you deserve to experience things you've never experienced? Love, partnership, romance?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized that I had been falling for Charlotte for weeks now without even acknowledging it. The way my heart lifted when I saw her name on my phone, the way I looked forward to her visits, the way her presence made my apartment feel less empty and my life feel less pointless.
I don't know how to do that, I admitted. Then let me help you. We started seeing each other regularly. She would come over after work, and we would cook dinner together. I would go to her place on weekends and meet her children properly. Amelia was passionate about environmental issues. We had long debates about climate change and conservation, and I was impressed how informed and articulate she was. Olivia showed me her artwork, and I encouraged her talent, even buying her some professional-grade supplies for her birthday. Emma just wanted someone to play with, so I found myself running around the backyard playing tag and hide-and-seek, feeling younger than I had in years. Gradually, they warmed up to me. They started greeting me with hugs instead of polite nods. They started asking me questions about my day, including me in their family jokes, treating me like I belonged. 6 months after Charlotte and I started dating, she brought up the idea of moving in together. My lease is up in 2 months. I've been thinking about finding a bigger place anyway. The kids are growing. They need more space. But Richard, I don't want to move somewhere new and start over again alone. I want us to find a place together, as a family. A family, I repeated, testing the word.
Is that too fast? She asked, suddenly worried. I know we've only been dating 6 months, but with 4 kids and our schedules, it feels like we've been together longer. And the kids love you. They've started calling you Uncle Richard. Have you noticed? I had noticed. Each time one of them said it, my heart swelled with warmth and something that felt dangerously close to joy. It's not too fast, I said. I think it's perfect. We found a house with 5 bedrooms, enough space for everyone. It had a big backyard where Emma could run around, a finished basement that Samuel claimed for playing video games, and a sunroom that became Olivia's art studio. Charlotte and I took the master bedroom, and for the first time in my life, I fell asleep next to someone I loved. The children adjusted beautifully to the new living arrangement. They created new routines, new traditions. Friday nights became family movie night. Sunday mornings we all cooked breakfast together, making a huge mess in the kitchen and laughing at our failures. Holidays became big celebrations with decorations and special meals and the kind of warmth I had always dreamed of but never experienced. Charlotte's children started calling me Dad instead of Uncle Richard. The first time Samuel said it, he looked almost embarrassed, like he was betraying his late father's memory. But Charlotte smiled at him encouragingly and told him it was okay, that his father would have wanted him to have a loving family, that loving me didn't mean he loved his dad any less. After that, all 4 of them called me Dad regularly. And each time they did, I felt a piece of my broken heart heal. I had never experienced this kind of family before. Even with Benjamin, it had always been just the 2 of us, struggling to survive. We had love, yes, but we also had stress and worry and constant financial pressure. There had been joy, but it had been hard-won joy, earned through sacrifice and struggle. This was different. This was easy, natural, full of laughter and warmth, and the kind of everyday happiness I had never known existed. Coming home to a house full of people who were genuinely happy to see me. Sitting around the dinner table with 6 other people, all talking at once, sharing stories about their days. Having someone to hold at night, someone who chose to be with me, not out of obligation, but out of love. I kept the $55 million a secret from Charlotte and her children. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I wasn't ready to deal with what that money represented. It was still sitting in my desk drawer, in the form of that check made out to Benjamin, a constant reminder of the son who had rejected me and the dream that had died. Sometimes Charlotte would ask me about Benjamin. Had I heard from him? Did I know how he was doing? Did I think about reaching out? The answers were always the same. No, I hadn't heard from him. I didn't know how he was doing except for what I could glean from occasional social media glimpses before I had blocked his accounts to spare myself the pain. And no, I wasn't ready to reach out. What would be the point? He had made his choice. He believed his mother's lies.
Nothing I could say would change his mind. "You're his father," Charlotte would say gently. "That bond doesn't just disappear, no matter what happened. Maybe someday he'll realize the truth and come back to you. And maybe he won't. I can't spend my whole life waiting for that to happen. I have to live my life now with the people who actually want me in it." 1 year passed since the wedding, then 2. I heard through the grapevine at work that Benjamin and Sophia were expecting a baby. Someone had seen it on social media, had mentioned it casually, without realizing how much the information would hurt me. I was going to be a grandfather. Benjamin was going to have a child, and I would never meet them. I would never hold my grandchild, never watch them grow, never be part of their life. The pain of that realization was almost as bad as the pain of being rejected at the wedding. I had mourned the loss of my son, but now I had to mourn the loss of grandchildren I would never know. Charlotte found me sitting in my study that evening, staring at nothing, tears streaming down my face. "I heard," she said softly, sitting down beside me. "Gregory called and told me. He thought you should know, but he was worried about how you would take it. I'm going to be a grandfather, and I won't even be allowed to meet them." "You don't know that? Maybe when the baby comes, Benjamin will reconsider. Maybe becoming a parent himself will make him understand everything you sacrificed for him. Or maybe it won't. Maybe he'll just follow Isabella's example and keep his child away from me, the same way she kept him away from me." Charlotte her arm around my shoulders and let me cry. She didn't offer empty platitudes or false hope. She just held me and let me grieve for what I had lost and what I would never have. Later I learned that it wasn't just one baby. Sophia had given birth to 3 triplets. 3 boys, all healthy, all beautiful, according to the pictures that circulated through social media. Benjamin had 3 sons. I had 3 grandsons, and I would never meet any of them. I tried not to let it consume me. I focused on Charlotte and her children, on the family I had built, on the happiness I had found. Samuel was getting ready to apply to colleges. Amelia had joined the debate team and was winning competitions. Olivia's art was being displayed in local galleries. Emma had discovered a love for soccer and was playing on a competitive team. These were my children now, in every way that mattered except biology. I loved them. I supported them. I showed up for them. And they loved me back without reservation, without conditions, without lies poisoning their minds against me. But still, in the quiet moments, I thought about Benjamin. I thought about the 3 grandsons I would never hold. I thought about the family I had lost and the hole that remained in my heart, no matter how much love Charlotte and her children poured into it. 2 years and 3 months after the wedding, on a quiet Tuesday evening, I was in the backyard with Emma, helping her practice her soccer drills. Charlotte was inside making dinner. Samuel was upstairs studying. Olivia and I were in the sunroom working on a collaborative art project. It was a perfect evening, warm but not too hot, with a gentle breeze and the smell of something delicious wafting from the kitchen window. I.M. and Emma continued our practice, me trying to block her shots, while she gleefully scored goal after goal against me. "Ayama was getting slow, Dad," she teased. "I'm getting old," I corrected with a laugh. "There's a difference." I heard a car pull up in front of the house, unusual since we weren't expecting anyone. I glanced toward the street, but couldn't see through the fence. Then I heard the doorbell ring. Charlotte called out from inside, "I'll get it." Emma and I continued our practice, me trying to block her shots while she gleefully scored goal after goal against me. I heard the front door open, heard Charlotte's voice saying something I couldn't make out. Then I heard her call out, louder this time, with a strange note in her voice. "Richard, you need to come inside right now." Something in her tone made my stomach drop.
I told Emma to keep practicing and walked quickly toward the house, my mind racing through possibilities. Had something happened? Was someone hurt? Was there an emergency?
I stepped through the back door into the kitchen, and Charlotte was standing there with a strange expression on her face. Shock, maybe, or concern. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Someone's here to see you," she said quietly. "At the front door. I think you should come talk to them." I walked through the kitchen into the living room, my heart starting to pound. Through the open front door, I could see a figure standing on the porch. A man holding a baby. No, not just one baby. I looked closer and saw a double stroller behind him with 2 more babies strapped in, all 3 of them looking around with wide, curious eyes. The man looked up, and our eyes met. It was Benjamin. My son was standing on my porch, holding one of his triplet sons, with the other 2 in the stroller behind him. His face was haggard, drawn, his eyes red-rimmed like he had been crying. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the 2 years since I had last seen him. Behind him, I could see Sophia sitting in a car parked at the curb, her head resting against the window, looking exhausted. Benjamin and I stared at each other for a long moment, neither of us speaking. Samuel had come downstairs to see what the commotion was about and was standing in the hallway, watching. Amelia and Olivia had emerged from the sunroom. Emma had followed me inside and was peeking around my legs. Finally, Benjamin spoke. "Dad," he said, and his voice cracked on the word. "I need to talk to you." I stood frozen in my living room, staring at the son I hadn't seen in over 2 years. Benjamin looked completely different from the confident, angry young man who had pushed me out of his wedding. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow and desperate. He was wearing rumpled clothes that looked like he had slept in them. The baby in his arms started to fuss, and he bounced automatically, the motion of an exhausted parent running on pure instinct. Charlotte came to stand beside me, her hand finding mine and squeezing gently. The children were all watching from various points in the house, sensing the tension, not understanding what was happening, but knowing it was important. If you were in my shoes, after he slammed those gates on me at his wedding, without reaching out over 2 years now, would you have slammed the door in his face, told him to leave and never come back, and hurt him the way he hurt you? Or welcome him in as a prodigal son and give him a share of your money? What would you have done? Let me know in the comment below. The story continues in part 2, and it is already uploaded. Before you go, please don't forget to subscribe to Pre-Sci-Fi Stories, turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story upload. Don't forget to give this video a like and share it with someone who deserved to listen to a good story. Wait, do you think they just came back and that was the end? Oh, no. Just check the channel. The part 2 is up. See you in part 2.